So good evening, welcome. Thanks to everybody who signed up, joined. I know that there's quite a lot of familiar faces in here, as well as some new ones as well. So we're going to be hearing from Hyun-Lim. G's been contracting through Third Republic for Merlin Entertainments for over a year, I think, for us, and he's going to be doing some really interesting stuff, finding a memory leak in Mule. Really clever guy, so feel free to ask him some questions. Joost from the Netherlands. Hello, Joost. He's a MuleSoft Instructor, developer, architect, all-round guru, works through partners and independently and all sorts. And he's going to be sharing some of his journey and answer any questions around stuff to do with certifications versus experience, working as a contractor and perm. And then finally, three of our resident experts as well. Jay, who founded and runs the meetups with us, who's the director of the MuleSoft practice at CapGemini, FS. Vaughn, Haybittle, who is currently enterprise integration architect at a large UK online retailer, we'll say, and director of a consultancy called QuadCorps. And Joost as well. We should be fielding some questions around about training and certification. We apply MuleSoft skills to MuleSoft partners, end customers, both on a permanent and freelance basis. We've done that for the last 2.5 years. And as far as we know, we were the first MuleSoft specialist recruitment agency in the UK, potentially in Europe. So that's us. Again, I do this every time, but the reason this group started, I attended a lot of MuleSoft summits, connects, conferences, and all the rest. I think they're absolutely fantastic, and I'll keep going to them. But we felt that there was a little bit of an opportunity in the market to create a group which is not vendor-led. It seems to have created a bit of a cult following. And we seem to see regular faces, but also a lot of new faces. So it's great to see so many this afternoon or this evening, depending on whereabouts in the world you are at the moment. And we intend to keep it that way. It will always be independently run. We'll always have different speakers. We'll always invite the community to be involved. It's supposed to be interactive, and it's also to generate wider discussions around integration, API challenges, etc. Not necessarily just MuleSoft. Something we're really proud of. Actually, on the 2nd of May will be 2 years since our first MuleSoft meetup, and it's gone obviously from 0 to 443 members in just under 2 years. As far as I'm aware, we are the largest meetup community in Europe for MuleSoft, and more importantly, we're the biggest independent MuleSoft meetup globally. Probably.
My name is Hyun-Lim, and everyone calls me G. And I've been in IT industry for about 17 years, or almost 18 years. And I've done third line Solaris Unix support, all the way to application support to Java development, including also the Perl and PHP development wise as well. In terms of integration wise, I've been in integration for about 10 years. I've exposed to Spring integration, Camel, and Mule. As for Mule experience, on the other hand, I've done I started using about 2010 when Mule 3.0 came out. So today's agenda is what's the supported JDK versions in Mule, introduction to JVM memory management, what's memory leak in JVM, what kind of behaviors you see, also tools for analysis, what is heap dump, basic theory of a heap dump, and practical example which I'm going to share. So, okay, Mule runtime. So Mule 3.8 is still supported until the end of 2021, 3.9, 4.1, and 4.2. And I've seen some customers still using Mule 3.5 with the Java JDK 1.7. But yeah, that's not good. So if anyone uses Mule 3.8 using a JDK 1.7, I strongly recommend to upgrade to the Mule 3.9. And basically, in terms of memory, JVM, the only difference between Java 8 and pre-Java 8 is that there's a permanent generation region, which actually stores the class metadata. So that's effectively everything about, the class information.
Can you expand on class metadata for me?
Yeah, so it's not just about, once Java class gets compiled, it's a bytecode, but it's not just bytecode. So once, all these bytecodes get stored in metadata, what it stores is, it stores, unpacks, bytecode, and what it does is it looks at the linkage to other classes, interfaces, and a field and method name. All of that gets stored. Also, it has the code entry addresses, etc., or the low level. So when it comes down to creating an object, it immediately finds a metadata of a class instance object.
I guess when you're doing things like JVM profiling and reflections, I guess that's what gets used. So if you're performance tuning and taking heap dumps, I guess that's where that data comes from.
Yeah. So minor garbage collection happens only within young or new generation region. At that point, application stops, JVM stops a very short period of time. Less than, usually less than 100 milliseconds. You can literally, feel it. As for, old generation, this long surviving objects get stored in there. So full GC looks at young generation and old generation regions. So it takes longer, and then entire JVM stops for a while. So if there's heavy, there's a really bad memory leak, the application JVM stops more than a second or 1.5 seconds. So you can literally see the performance issue. And then here's the meta space. Well, based on that, we know that we have two possible memory leaks in meta space or memory leak in heap space. So when you have a memory leak in heap, at the end of a JV, in the log, you will see out of memory error, Java heap space. So if someone writes an application, the size of an app is just say a few hundred meg, and it's not a good idea to actually give just say a few hundred meg of the memory settings. It's better to give at least half gig or something like that. But given that we have given enough memory for application to work properly, and somehow there's a memory issue, then you'll see that kind of issue, Java heap space. In terms of a memory leak in meta space, on the other hand, hardly ever seen it. It happens when dynamic loading, class loading happens. So class gets loaded, lots of stuff and times in the and then fill up meta space, and then after that the application JVM just falls apart. It's quite rare in Mule, but I've seen it once.
I had a question. So most places that I work on or work at, I should say, we always set XMX and XMS, which is setting the heap size. But I don't think anybody really ever sets the maximum metaspace size. Is that something you would recommend? Because obviously it's how many apps load and etc.
I would recommend it to set it to like half gig, for example. Here's my local environment. So config. So in here, there's a wrapper.conf. As far as I know, by default, I think the meta space is set right here.
Yeah, so this has been changed. This is Mule 4.2, I guess, or 4.1?
Yeah, 4.1.
Yeah, 4.1.
Yeah.
Because I think it was 128, and then there was an update because everything started crashing.
Yeah.
I think, and I'm not sure if you know, but our customers there was a major issue with metaspace in Mule 4. So I think it's actually good that you point this out, because that was, and now this is the new default as far as I know in the wrapper.com as well.
Yeah, that's right. So what happened is, if you happen to, for example, you can, this is my local environment, I'll set it up, and you can actually add lots of applications in here. Imagine you add 20 or 30 applications and you have a beefy server. Then if you don't use your, So if this is not set up correctly, you will have a metaspace error.
So, and I guess the more applications you deploy, the bigger the metaspace needs to be, or is it more, you know, more jars that get loaded because you've got more connectors, etc. It's not necessarily the number of apps, right? Because it's using the Spring code.
Yep, number of libraries you use and number of the size of an application, such as presentation. So behaviors in Anypoint platform. So when we have a heap memory leak in heap space, what happens if there isn't any? Then what we'll see, you're supposed to see this kind of constant flat. But what will happen is but what happens is whenever there is a massive request coming in, there's a memory leak. The number of requests being processed goes down, and then memory usage here goes up. That's a heap space, and then even though number of requests being processed is really low, but the CPU usage is quite high. The reason is the garbage collector uses much of a CPU resource to free up memory. If you happen to run your environment in Anypoint platform cloud environment, then you have to raise a support call to get a heap dump, or you just happen to download a on-prem runtime environment from MuleSoft, and once you download it, it's really good to actually set GC log in the wrapper.conf. All you need to do is copy this and paste it. It just works for you. And then on the Linux environment, I just need to set Java Mule home, Java home, and any deploying to applications to Mule environment, it just goes to apps directory, and then bin directory, just do Mule start, then start. That will do.
Hey Jay, we've got a Linux question, so hopefully your Solaris skills might come in handy here.
Okay.
So the question is, how do I do a heap dump in AIX, which is, I guess, the IBM?
Oh yeah, it's the same thing. So if they happen to have if they happen to use a normal JDK, not IBM, then I'm sure you can use the same thing, JMap or JCMD.
And I guess the same tools are available in Open Java, OpenJDK.
Yeah, OpenJDK is effectively the Oracle JDK.
Okay, now yes, that's correct. Yeah. And I guess, so Baida is pointing out you can only do this after the leakage happens. So I guess the thing about heap dump is you might have to take multiple heap dumps as you see it grow, and then you can see what classes are growing, right? So yes, you need to do this while the leak is in progress.
Yeah, so there are two ways. If leakage is really small, then you have to take a multiple dump. If leakage is really fast, you can just happen to do just one dump or two dumps. Once you've taken a dump, then we just need to do a heap dump analysis. I quite like the Java memory analyzer tool. That's originally developed by IBM and supported by IBM, I think, still is, and then donated to Eclipse. So all you need to do is download it and then load the Java heap dump file, and then it will tell you all about it. You can use Visual VM, but I'm not sure who supports it. But as for NetBeans Profiler, that's supported by Oracle, and there are many more paid versions. But why should we pay when there are free ones available? So understanding of heap dump. So heap dump is nothing but a snapshot of a JVM memory state. So this contains information about all objects, class fields, printed values, and reference to other objects. Objects not defined to be reachable by the JVM means that they are dereferenced, which means that those objects will be garbage collected. And heap dump will contain thread stacks and local variables, etc. So think of a heap dump is nothing but or data structure of a heap dump is nothing but think of it as a directed graph of object references. So here's one example, just like that. So imagine this is a initial thread or object, that kicks off all other objects. Imagine this one is a listener, this is a requester, etc. Here it has incoming, B has an incoming reference, or A has an outgoing reference. So when you go through heap dump or objects references, you'll see incoming references or outgoing references. So you can think of it as incoming reference as think of it as parents, or you're looking for parents, and outgoing references, you're thinking of I want to look for my children. When you analyze heap dump, you will encounter a few terms like shallow heap, retain heap, and retain set. So shallow heap is the size of an object and its primitive values. So node A right here is a shallow heap, and it contains a primitive values like integer, character, etc. Retain heap is the shallow heap plus any underlying dependent outgoing references, which is this, all of this. So effective, you can think of it as effective size of an object. So effective size of node A is all of this. So when you look for an object that memory leak, then you try to find an object that has the most memory used. And the retain set is a set of objects that would be garbage collected. So for example, this is a GC root and node A, and then it's supposed to, and it has a reference to B. And for some reason, and then after a certain number of iterations and some requests got processed, now A has no longer reference to B, which means that this becomes retained set.
If there is no more connections or references at all, then that's the moment when garbage collection is able to kick in and clear up, right?
When garbage collector kicks in, then it will delete those objects, but it will hang around in Java heap space until the garbage collector kicks in and cleans them up.
Cool, thank you.
So how do these map against Eden, young generation, etc.? That's the question in the chat.
Okay, you can't, because object in the old generation region will have a reference to an object in new generation region, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, because any of these objects could be in both Eden, young, old, etc. Right? It just depends on how long those objects have been in memory for.
So it's all about what's the effective size of effective usage, size of a usage within Java heap. So
got it.
Example. So finding leaks, just get a heap dump, open a heap dump. You can actually select the leaks, select suspects, or going through incoming, outgoing references, etc., and then finding leaks. Also inspector, it gives you information about the object, references, and value. Yeah. So all you need to do is understand the directed heap dump is nothing more than directed graph referencing from or to objects, and just need to get a heap dump, and they use a memory analyzer tool, and then either use dominated tree or leaks, or just click leak suspect, and it will tell you all about it. But you also need to do a bit of investigation.
Absolutely. Thanks ever so much, G. Really appreciate that. Over to you, Joost.
I'm going to share a bit of story from my 5 years experience in MuleSoft. I started to work on 1st of May 2015 with the product. So let me talk a little bit about myself, how it was. From the field, well, to be honest, it wasn't like this. Well, maybe it felt it at first, but let me tell you how it all went, and my takeaways from MuleSoft, and hopefully also I want to use some tips and tricks at the end, how to actually progress further along into working with Mule. So my name is Joost. I'm from the Netherlands. I have a one-man company. So I'm a contractor, but I work as a one-man company. I'm a MuleSoft certified instructor. So I work already for quite a long time as a contractor for MuleSoft. I will talk a little bit about that as well. On the side, I will also make sure that I open up the chat so I also can see that. So I certified developer, of course, certified platform and integration architect, experience with MuleSoft for 5 years, 4+ as a contractor. And I started working for MuleSoft already for, I think for 4 years now, a bit more. So I'm part of the MuleSoft training team in EMEA. I was one of the first instructors actually in EMEA, in the region, delivering training courses online and on site. So that means online via WebEx or something similar like this. Also public classes, right? That means people from different companies join, and private classes. So I travel to companies on site, deliver operations classes, fundamentals. Nowadays, I only teach shorter classes, almost all operation classes, API design, a bit of workshops, stuff like that. Well, for me, delivering the training part and actually also having real world experience is a real engager, right? So this really is going to help me a lot, but also help my students a lot, right? So it's quite a unique combination actually, that normally all the people who work at MuleSoft as an instructor typically have, maybe they worked at simple projects or at some demo projects for training, but they never work at real projects at a customer. So I can make this engaging experience, etc.
And it's quite difficult to get that mix going, right? The mix that you had. You know, how do you manage your time, I guess, between all of those different engagements?
Yeah, sometimes that's hard, right? So that's why I actually included this slide, like in the imagination game, right? So that's sometimes I'm at training and then a customer starts calling, right? Or sometimes I'm at a customer and I need to still prepare some stuff for training. So sometimes that can be a bit tough.
So we do get quite a lot of people who are new to Mule. So
okay, that's good. That's good, because I also definitely have some takeaways for that, right? So how to start, how was my journey, but how can your journey be, and what do you need to put into it yourself, right?
Yeah.
So I was definitely planning to include a sentence here. It doesn't come overnight. There is no overnight success, as with every other technology or skill actually, right? The tools. But you don't know the platform after one training, right? It takes time. You need to have hands-on experience typically. I worked with similar tools. Does not make you any MuleSoft expert yet, right? If you have any tool, any other integration or visual BPM tooling, something that looks similar, doesn't mean that you can ramp up as easily as this. However, it's quite easy to ramp up, I think, on the product. But nowadays, the product and the Anypoint platform is quite huge. And I work with end customers in different roles. Sometimes I come in as a developer. Sometimes I take more of a lead role. Sometimes I'm more involved in automation. But for yourself, right, there are different roles coming up. MuleSoft journey does not have to be that you're only an architect, only a developer. So how do I look at the market? Well, to be honest, I operate in the Netherlands and Belgium mainly for my own company, and working for partners and end customers. I really see this happening. So I also talk to people from Third Republic, and every now and then how they see the market. And I see here MuleSoft growth. I really saw company are growing, right? The acquisition of Salesforce, like now 2 years ago, even did more of a boost, but still I saw continuous growth. I saw the partners grow and the partners themselves in growth, right? In employee growth, but still I only see a very, very limited amount of contractors. A bit on the side, like my perspective on contracting versus employment, right? Very good rates, right? So I see a new poll is also coming in. How are you employed? Very good rates in contracting nowadays. Flexible, so that is what I actually like the most, right? Flexible means typically you can have at least in some form your own agenda. It depends, of course. Challenging, well, plus and minus, right? So it's very challenging to do. You can typically go out there and typically choose some of your clients sometimes, but also, well, sometimes you're longer with a certain client or whatsoever. So it can also depend. More experiences, well, depend, but sometimes you really can hop to or work on multiple customers over the couple of years, right? And you can gain a lot of experience in different environments. You go to one company, they are on Azure. You go to the other company, they are on AWS. Another one on-prem, et cetera, right? So, and low risk. I say that is one of the reasons that I started working with a MuleSoft partner for a short time, but when I went into contracting, because it's quite a low risk. You can go back easily to a partner or to another company. With my other roles or other skills, that I see that are very important that you can actually, if you have them, stand out in the market. So adaptive, right? Ready and willing to adapt to new technology tools and changes of that, right? It's that's from my point of view crucial actually to hop on with any technology, but also soft skills. I cannot stress it enough. Very important. Communication is key, and to be honest, be able to type a proper email and just ask a question to someone maybe who's not that technical. Flexibility and teamwork, and make it able to at least somehow interact with the business or with other stakeholders. Eagerness, wanting more is getting more. Do you want to learn? Do you want to adapt? Do you want to ramp up? And you really want to see it going, and you don't, and that goes along with persistence as well, right? That is very important, and that also goes along with learning, right? Get education and educate yourself. So certification, be prepared with the official training and get certified. More on that in the closing Q&A. Social, I saw it growing over time, right? There are Facebook groups, there are excellent YouTube channels popping up, almost new ones every 2-3 months. And there are some new excellent ones. WhatsApp groups, LinkedIn groups, Twitter, even Instagram channels now that post stories about technical data weave stuff, etc. A lot of stuff is out there. Events, meetups like these, right? Of course, in person, virtual meetups, conferences. A tip is, and education, right? Educate yourself also with the other principles. Maybe you're not that familiar with Maven yet. Maybe you want to learn about Jenkins. Maybe you want to learn about testing, right? You go to Udemy and you sign up for a course for like €10 or like £10. Trailhead, right? Part of the sales. If you want to learn more about Salesforce or the combination MuleSoft and Salesforce, edX, Coursera, free courses from typically US universities or YouTube, right? A lot of things. If I can, number one, and I go from great to awesome, okay? blogs.mulesoft.com, make sure that you know this. blogs.mulesoft.com has new articles almost every day. Sometimes docs.mulesoft.com, everyone knows docs.mulesoft.com who works with MuleSoft already, but don't get me wrong, and make sure you know how to make proper use of it. The search function, bottom left, search and select the correct version of the runtime that you're looking actually, or the product that you're actually looking for in the case of that article. Make sure that you know also to dig in deeper in documentation. There are tutorials, right? For example, the object store, tutorials about how to use the object store. There is a lot of stuff actually hidden, right? But if you search and if you know where to go, you can actually benefit huge from that. Anypoint monitoring, building your own dashboards. There is not a training course for this yet or workshop, but there are in-depth, there are articles on how you can actually set this up yourself. Domain project, the same, you see, right? There are already tutorials, MUnit cookbook. If you go deeper in the documentation, excellent. If you spot an error in the documentation, raise a pull request on GitHub, because help.mulesoft.com and help.mulesoft.com, you might think like, well, this is the same as documentation. This is just another window. It's not. Help.mulesoft.com contains knowledge-based articles. This is going to help you big time, right? It will explain workarounds. You see related articles. Maybe the first article that you hit is not the one, but you can go through. And indeed, as Jay said, this is based on the support team, right? If things are really off, they write an article, right? A workaround article, how to proceed from here, and they post it here, because then also people who are filing these cases, they can be redirected to these URLs. Catalyst.mulesoft.com. The Catalyst program was always a bit, well, I would say enclosed for MuleSoft itself, and for some MuleSoft customers as well. This is now being very powerful. More than 250 resources, best practices. Really, you see a list here of best practice documents. Really like PDFs that you can just use, naming strategies, creating a pipeline with Jenkins, Azure DevOps, stuff more on the soft side for C4E, outcome-based delivery, doing stuff with log aggregation, like 250 plus articles straight from the source. This, a lot of people don't know this. You need to have a customer Anypoint platform account to make sure that you can log into it. My bit of my journey and how I gain my knowledge and my experiences.
Thanks, Joost. Thank you for sharing your journey with us.
And Anurag's just asked how the current market for mule jobs in Europe is, and Joost and I had this conversation this week that I've seen it flip quite a bit in the UK, whereas in the Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, we're still seeing quite a high demand for MuleSoft skills. It's very much a candidates market in Europe, where it's kind of flipped to a buyer's market in the UK at the moment.
For me, I started off December 2015, for me it's the same. So I'm not sure why, but I can tell you lots of opportunity, especially now in these times. And I think also when we are recovering from this, it will even be ramp up and be better. Huge potential. Also the combination with Salesforce, there will be a lot of customers ramping up, and it's a good bet. I betted on a Mule 5 years ago, and I never had doubts on it, or I never had regrets on it. So I think, how do you recommend using the JSON logger rather than configuring your log4j to print logs as JSON?
I can take that one again. So the default kind of logger, what you can do is set up name value pairs worth of logging. And if you do name value pairs, I don't think JSON adds much more than 2 curly braces at the end of the payload, if you like. Unless you need sort of hierarchical logging to your object, I don't see any benefit to moving to JSON based over name value pairs. Any tool that you use like ELK, Splunk, or any kind of log aggregator, Graylog, they all support name value pairs, and I find it's the easiest to work with. We
use it actually a lot, almost for every project nowadays.
And JSON logger or name value pairs?
Yeah, and that's a bit of a pity actually, as it's still not in the MuleSoft Exchange. So that's something, but well, you can fork it, right. And we have very good experiences. One of the benefits that I went for customers using Logstash or Splunk is the markers, so the trace points. Start, exception, end, before transformation, after transformation, etc. that they like, and the configuration, right? People who don't know Log4j or how to set it up, other developers who are not familiar with that can easily work with a JSON logger. We
are currently using App Dynamics, which is an advanced version similar to Splunk, and I think we did find the JSON usage on the APIs just to see the log mode for all the insurance based APIs that we are supporting. So I mean, as Joost mentioned about the different modes as well, whether you put it on info, Vaughn, or debug, whatever kind of format of message you want to see. I think it Log4j integrates pretty well with both Splunk and App Dynamics in my experience.
Also, the type of logging does impact. So if you're using custom logger and it's using synchronous logging, then it will have a performance impact. And if you've got set up asynchronous logging, then performance is going to be much better. I think in Mule 3.7, it might be in 3.8, there was a big exercise within Mule to improve logging level, and they looked at different logging frameworks and performance tested it.
When new developers are getting into MuleSoft, it's very, very, very convenient to log the payload when you're developing in order for debugging. Mm-hmm. A lot of times I don't see that taken out before applications are put into production, and that does have a significant impact on performance if it's a big payload, for example, or if a large number of requests are coming in. That's one of the big smells that I've seen a number of times.
I can add something on the logging. Last week somebody misconfigured our Splunk ingester, so we soon had a maxing out of our open file handlers, even though it's asynchronous logging out of MuleSoft. So that'll slow it down. So I've centralized my logs so that I can switch them off as need be.
Also, in terms of logging performance, I've seen clients where, depending on how their logging is set up, if they are logging to disk and the number of logs being logged and the number of transactions that the application is generating is high, that sometimes the vast number of logs being written to disk can actually then cause performance issues at a disk level and almost disrupt the Mule runtime. So I don't know about Mule 4, but with Mule 3, some of the advice we got from Mule support was don't log your logs to the same disk as your runtime if you have massive numbers of logs. So that's something to think about as well.
I guess thank you for Joost, G, as well as other folks who've been fielding Q&A like Adam.
But yeah, thanks again to everyone for their support. Remember, via that channel as well, people can talk and interact, share email addresses, LinkedIn pages, phone numbers to catch up with each other afterwards. That's the benefit of it, and the ethos behind it being a community led by the people within it.